Levin is on the radio. Right versus left is right versus wrong. Call Mark at 877-381-3811.
You know, folks, you hear me talk about Hillsdale College all the time. You hear me talk about the president, Dr. Larry Arnn, who is one of my mentors. I told you the story earlier this week or last week. I can't remember days anymore. And he is one of the most important and profound professors, I would say, of the Declaration and the Constitution in this country. And it is my honor to have him with us, and he's also my dear friend. That counts for the most. Larry Arnn, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. I'm just coming off a great conference where you knocked him dead.
Well, thank you. Particularly that one guy in the back, huh? Well, we won't get into that. But anyway.
You're not exactly a fellow to run away, are you?
No. Well, Larry Arnn, you've written an amazing book, and I must say, a book that people can understand. It's in plain English, and yet it covers all these crucial topics. The book is The Founder's Key, the divine and natural connection between the Declaration and Constitution, and what we risk by losing it. Now, you know, radio, we only have certain segments and so forth. What is the connection between the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution?
They require each other, and they require each other under the laws of nature and of nature's God. In order to have government by consent, which is our natural right, we have to have forms of government that enable that and protect that. And those are named in the Declaration of Independence in the charges against the king in three categories. Government has to be limited. He has sent among us swarms of officials to eat out our substance and harass our people, like today.
Yeah, like today.
It has to be representative. Remember, and he's interfered, the king has, with these representative institutions that are 150 years old by the time of the Declaration. And remember, the administrative state is not representative. And then finally, the powers have to be separated. God is named four times in the Declaration. 3 is each branch of government. And the king is criticized for messing with the other branches, the legislative and judicial. And remember, the administrative state is not separated in its powers.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say the laws of nature and nature's God, what do you mean by that?
It means two things mainly. It means the word nature comes from the Latin word for birth. It means what are things born to be. A baby grows up to be a human. A puppy grows up to be a dog. An acorn grows up to be an oak tree. And the way of the thing that makes it what it is its nature. And that means that if there's something special about their nature, you have to treat it in accordance with that special thing. So Jefferson writes of the Declaration, it only means that some men are not born with saddles on their backs, nor are others booted and spurred to ride them by the grace of God. That means men are not horses, and no man can rightly treat another man as any man can treat a horse. Mm-hmm. And the second thing it means is nature in the big sense, how everything works. And so, you know, the sun comes up in the morning, and if an apple falls loose from a tree, gravity pulls it down. And so if you put those two things together, the uniqueness of each kind of being and what's appropriate to it, and the grand working of things, it just means look at a thing and you can tell in nature how it ought to be treated.
I'm talking to Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College, and he's written this magnificent book that I encourage you to look at. It's The Founder's Key. You can get it on Amazon.com. You can go to MarkLevinShow.com and see. You can go to my social sites and see it. Dr. Larry Arnn, this word equality, what did the founders mean by equality, and what do the politicians mean today for the most part? Well,
equality, first of all, the obvious thing about human beings, if you just look at a group of them, is they're all different. Two of my favorite recent graduates from Hillsdale, one of them is playing offensive left tackle for the Oakland Raiders, and another one is getting ready to be a clerk on the Supreme Court.
Now, wait a minute. Who's that? Who's the offensive left tackle?
His name is Jared Valdier,
Wow.
And he's 6'8" and 330, and he was, I think, 4th in the voting for All-Pro last year in his second year, and he was the blindside starting left tackle in his rookie year. And he's a heck of a kid.
And who's the fellow who's going to be the clerk on the Supreme Court?
His name is David Morrell, and he's from California. I've known him since he was a pup, and he's turned into a full human being. Who would have thought he'd ever do it? Right. These two guys are really different, and then if you see them standing side by side, one of them's little and one of them's big. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, stand them up next to a pig or a horse or a dog, and you'll see that they're the same kind of thing. Equality means that. And if equality is used to obscure the differences between people, like some people work hard and some people don't, some people are like very big and fast, like Jared, and some people are not, like me.
Yes.
So, and you're really good at the radio, and also a heck of a lawyer. Also, you can write. What's wrong with you, Levin? You can do everything.
I don't know, man.
But so the point is, we have a natural property in what you call in logic the accidental features of the human being. That is to say, big, tall, short, fat, whatever, smart, not so smart. Well, that's our individual property. But what's essential about us is the source of our equality. And if you try to turn it into anything else, like if you recognize the natural rights of human beings, it breeds harmony. Because we can all talk, and we can all pray, and we can all enjoy our own property all we want, and we don't have to take anything from anybody. But if we have a right to each other's property, then we're going to fight over it. And so the equal natural rights have to do with the things that, as Madison says, anything to which we can have a value and attach a right, leaving the like advantage to every other. Mm-hmm. So if you got a right to medical care and you don't provide it for yourself, somebody else is obliged to provide it. And that sets up a war in society. And there's, as you rightly point out, that word equality and that word right are fundamental words for America, and if we get them wrong, the government gets into a very different shape than it should be.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of shape is the government in today?
Well, it's becoming unlimited. And what that means is, because in America, the glory of the American government, according to the founders, James Madison especially, is that it's the first big liberal society, a society in which a large, vibrant, thriving private community controls the government and it works for them. Well, in America right now, the government is about 45% of the gross domestic product of the United States, and it's growing faster. And so one of these days, it's going to be bigger if the trends continue, and they're likely to, than the private society. More value in economic terms in the government than out. And look what happens then. Right now, I think it's 3.5 is the number of four of the biggest givers in politics in the top 10 are public employee unions. The Service Employees International Union is only half public, but the public part's the part that's growing. And that means that the money they give in politics, which they give almost exclusively to one side in politics, is money coming from outside the government upon the society. And so the government is now helping to control the means by which the government is chosen. And that's what I mean by unlimited. And that is a breach of the constitutional structure implied in the Declaration of Independence and stated in the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. What is the biggest, do you think, confusion or mistake that people make about the founders? Is it when they just say, well, so many of them own slaves and so forth? And how would you respond to that?
Well, the slaveholding thing is a wonderful and a tragic story, both. First of all, the founders, one of the chapters in my book is called Hypocrisy, and it excuses the founders of that charge because they didn't pretend that slaveholding was good. Hypocrisy is when vicious people flatter and pretend to be virtuous. these people condemned slavery, and across most of the Union, they abolished it. And they didn't get it done everywhere, but where they didn't, they even in those places, they didn't claim that it was good. And of course, they're the first generation in human history to acknowledge that. And that's why they were consistent when they spoke the principles of the Declaration. Mm-hmm. That's one important mistake. A second one is, we think is a kind of common thing that because they rode horses and went around in buggies and wagons, and we don't anymore, that the institutions of government they made were outmoded. But if you just think about it for a little while, stuff like that is not what the institutions of government are about. What they're about is some things that are natural to the human being. Madison puts it this way: we require to be governed because we are not angels. Government must be limited because those in government are not angels either. Now, is that the kind of thing, if it's ever true, that would pass away because technology changes? Look at Washington, D.C. today and ask yourself, are the governing classes acting like angels?
Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to Dr. Larry Arnn. He's the president, as you know, if you listen to this program, of Hillsdale College, which is an unbelievably wonderful college. He's written this great book, The Founder's Key, The Divine and Natural Connection Between the Declaration and the Constitution, and What We Risk by Losing. You can go to Amazon.com. It's on my website, MarkLevinShow.com. It's on our social sites. I want to strongly encourage you to take a look at it, because it is really important stuff written in a way that you can digest. Dr. Arnn, can you hold on for another segment?
We're honored to do so, Mark.
Mark Levin.
Dr. Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College, constitutional scholar of the Declaration, and I might add of Winston Churchill. Dr. Arnn, we don't have a lot of time. Here's my question to you. What drives the modern government away from the Constitution?
I think in that question is also the information why it's dangerous, what's going on. About 100 years ago, a bit more, philosophic thought came to be dominated by the idea that you can't know anything, really. John Dewey, an American, writes that the founders were really, when they proclaimed the laws of nature, or nature's God, were really only saying something about their own time. Frank Goodnow, one of the main progressives, the intellectual fathers of the people who rule America right now, he was a teacher. And he says, when he's a teacher, he says of his teaching that we professors take ourselves too seriously, because really our students are eventually just going to think whatever the economic conditions they live in make them think. So it's kind of a despair. You can't know anything. But then in that is born a kind of a determination, and it's nihilistic. They think, okay, if our conditions dominate our thinking, why don't we just try to dominate all the conditions? Why don't we have a government big enough to make everything however we want it? That's why we have big government today. It's that argument. We have to impose our will on everything because it's only our will, after all, that exists. Mm-hmm. And the trouble with it is a pursuit of power for the sake of power only. Barack Obama writes in Audacity of Hope, the whole idea of constitutional liberty requires that there be no self-evident truth. And then the question arises, what would restrain them then from doing whatever they want to do? That's why I think they're dangerous, and I think that's what drives them.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you hear his brilliance, Larry Arnn. The book is The Founder's Key. It's on my website, MarkLevinShow.com. It's on Amazon.com, my social sites. I would strongly encourage you to get it. Dr. Arnn, God bless you, my friend. I had a blast with you a few days, so I appreciate it.
Your viewers should know that I've known you a long time before you were famous. You're an excellent man.
Well, you're a sweetheart. I really appreciate that. All right, Larry. God bless you. Take care. He's a good man, and you will love this book, The Founder's Key. And bye.
Mark Levin.